There is a strange moment no one ever warns you about. Your eyes are open, you're breathing, you're doing everything you normally do. But something feels off. Everything you're living, your job, your relationships, your routines, suddenly feels like a script someone else wrote. You don't remember agreeing to it, but somehow, you're still here, playing your part. You think you're in control, but deep down, a quieter part of you knows. You're following a map that isn't yours. And worse, you've forgotten what your original map even looked like. But imagine this. What if I told you that every fear, every doubt, every part of yourself you've tried to hide wasn't a barrier, but a signal trying to lead you home? If you're willing, in the next few minutes, we'll begin a journey where your darkness is no longer something to avoid, but the very key to unlocking your true purpose. This won't be easy to hear, but if you stay to the end, you'll realize there's still a way to change course, even if you thought you'd gone too far. Have you ever stood in front of a mirror and the reflection didn't look back at you? Not in the eerie, horror movie kind of way, but in a way that feels quietly unsettling. As if, in that moment, what you see doesn't quite match the person you believe yourself to be. The eyes look more tired than you expected. The smile feels more like a reflex than a genuine emotion. And behind the glass, there's a strange stillness, like a part of you has been missing for a long time. That feeling creeps in when you least expect it. Maybe while washing your hands in a public restroom or catching a glance in the elevator mirror late at night. You tell yourself, I'm probably just tired. But if you allow yourself to stay for a few more seconds, you might recognize a harder truth. That this isn't the first time. And maybe it's been a while since you last truly recognized the person in the mirror. Carl Jung once said that what you seek in the outer world is often a reflection of what you've abandoned within. These lost parts don't disappear. They retreat into a shadowed space, a place you rarely visit. But that shadow doesn't stay still. It seeps into your choices, your relationships, your reactions. Even when you believe you're fully in control. You think you're making decisions with logic, but many of them are rooted in buried memories, suppressed emotions, and roles you were once forced to play. Maybe you're chasing a stable job that everyone praises, but every morning feels like a dress rehearsal instead of a life you chose. Perhaps you're in a relationship that looks picture perfect from the outside, but when you're alone, you can feel yourself shrinking, little by little. And maybe, in your quietest moments, you've heard that question echo from within. Is this my life? Shadow, according to Jung, isn't just the ugly or broken parts. It also holds your dormant potential, your unspoken desires, the abilities you dismissed too quickly to be accepted. In other words, what you've been avoiding might be the key to a more meaningful life. The problem is, to find that key, you have to walk into the room you've kept locked for years. But notice this, the door isn't always hidden in some faraway or mystical place. It might be a conversation you keep putting off, a decision you know you need to make, but keep finding reasons to delay, or something as simple and terrifying as sitting still and letting the uncomfortable questions rise. The real question is, will you keep walking away, pretending not to notice? Or will you stop, just once, and face the part of you that's been left behind? Because just like tracing faded paint on an old wall, if you stay long enough, if you dare to touch what feels forgotten, you might find a door you never knew existed. And when that door opens, you'll finally understand why, even after having everything others told you should matter, you've always felt like something was missing. Jung once said, "The shadow is not your enemy. It's the forgotten companion." It sounds paradoxical at first, but if you look closer, you'll find it uncomfortably true. Think about the moments when you overreacted to a simple comment. Others might brush it off, but you carried it with you for the rest of the day. That's because the words touched an old wound, a part of your shadow that's never been fully faced. Modern psychology calls it a trigger, something that reactivates buried emotions and unprocessed memories. But Jung's philosophy goes further. He sees these moments not as glitches to be fixed, but as invitations. Invitations to pause and ask, why did I react like that? What is this trying to show me about myself? This is where psychology and philosophy meet. Psychology offers tools to help you understand your reactions. Philosophy, especially Jung's, teaches you how to ask deeper questions and extract meaning from those reactions. If psychology is the map, then philosophy is the reason you walk it. But here's the problem. Most of us learn psychology only to fix ourselves, to be less anxious, less angry, less sensitive. Jung, on the other hand, invites you to look deeper, to see those states not as flaws to eliminate, but as signals, like someone knocking at your door with a message. When you treat them as nuisances, you slam the door shut. But if you open that door, you might realize it's a part of you coming home. This is where Jung introduces a crucial idea. Your life's purpose is not something you find out there. It is something that emerges when you're brave enough to turn inward and reintegrate the parts of yourself you once rejected. And that, perhaps, explains why so many people reach their goals and still feel empty. They climbed to the summit of a mountain drawn by someone else, without ever setting foot on the ground that was truly theirs. If you begin to understand this bridge between philosophy and psychology, you'll see that exploring the shadow is no longer just about healing. It becomes the key to unlocking your hidden potential. That's when the shadow stops threatening you and starts guiding you toward a clearer, more meaningful life. Have you ever wondered why you react in ways you don't even understand? A harmless comment leaves you silent for hours. A passing glance makes your chest tighten. It's not because you're too sensitive, like they say. It's your unconscious speaking. Jung called it the shadow, the part of your psyche that holds the memories, emotions, and drives you've suppressed for years. The problem is, the unconscious doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in symbols and reflexes. Every time you overreact with anger, feel anxious for no clear reason, or get stuck in unease that you can't name, that's a symbol trying to emerge. But instead of listening, most of us try to shut it down. We turn the music up louder, scroll longer, work harder, anything to not face it. And that creates a loop. The more we avoid the shadow, the stronger it becomes. This mechanism works like a compressed spring. The more you push it down, the harder it pushes back. And eventually, it erupts. Through an outburst, an impulsive decision, or a lingering sense of being lost. Jung believed we're not meant to control the unconscious, but to start a dialogue with it. Not by overanalyzing every emotion, but by asking the right questions. What is this feeling trying to tell me? What pattern keeps repeating in my life? When you ask questions like that, you open a channel, a way to reconnect with the part of you that's been silenced. And when that communication becomes clear, your life's purpose, the thing you once thought was distant or abstract, starts to take form. But here's the hard part. This process will show you things you don't want to see. You may realize you still carry anger toward your parents, that you're still afraid of abandonment, like when you were a child, that you've been living out a script someone else wrote long ago. And it's here that many people turn back. They return to what feels safe, the movie, the small talk, the job that keeps them busy but hollow. That's why I need you to stay until the end of this video, because in the next parts, we'll reach the core, the places most people never dare to touch, where the shadow doesn't just hide wounds, it hides the key to your true self. If you leave now, you'll only see half the picture. But if you stay, you'll witness what Jung called the rebirth of the self. The moment you stop running and begin to walk with new awareness. And that will change the way you see everything. Imagine living in a house where, since you were a child, you've never opened certain rooms. The doors are still there, but you walk past them every day without ever touching the handle. You've grown used to living in a few bright, tidy rooms, the ones others praise as beautiful, presentable, safe. But one day, you begin to hear sounds coming from behind one of the locked doors. At first, you ignore it. Then, the sounds get louder. Footsteps, furniture being dragged, sometimes even whispers. You start to feel uneasy, because even though you haven't opened the door, something deep down already knows who or what is in there. To Jung, those locked rooms are the shadow parts of you. They hold memories, desires, and emotions you thought you had outgrown, or never wanted to admit existed. And the noise, that's your unconscious signaling that it's time to look. But most of us choose instead to turn the music up, invite more friends into the well-lit rooms, and pretend the rest of the house doesn't exist. The problem is, a house only truly belongs to you when every door can be opened. And here's the twist. Not every door hides something terrifying. Often when you finally open it, what you find isn't a ghost, but a forgotten piece of yourself waiting patiently to be seen. Maybe it's an old dream you buried, a part of your personality you were told to suppress, or a strength you never dared to use. Opening the door isn't easy because it means facing mess, dust, and an initial discomfort that most would rather avoid. But once you walk in, you realize what you've been avoiding isn't just pain, it's power. Jung once said, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." And if the house is a symbol of your psyche, then that treasure is never in the living room where everyone gathers. It's in the room you forgot you had. What changes you is not what you find behind the door. What changes you is the moment you choose to open it. Because when you open one, you build the courage to open the rest. And then you stop surviving in a few safe corners and start inhabiting the full space of your being. In the same way, when you turn toward the shadow, you don't just heal old wounds. You uncover a path that was always there, hidden behind the very door you were afraid to touch. There's a reason why so many people resist facing their own shadow. Because it doesn't just show you your fear, it shows you every moment you've abandoned yourself. When you look into it, you'll see the opportunities you didn't dare to take, the words you swallowed down, the times you made yourself smaller, softer, more agreeable, just to avoid making waves. And in that moment you realize you weren't just a victim of circumstance, you were an accomplice. That truth is hard to accept because it shatters the comforting story that none of this was under my control. But if you don't dare to admit it, you'll keep walking in the same familiar circles, mistaking motion for progress. Jung believed that the first step to breaking that cycle isn't to change the world. It's to turn back and say to the part you left behind, "I see you." That recognition is like the first sliver of light falling into a basement. It doesn't illuminate everything, but it's enough to show you that you are no longer completely imprisoned by the dark. And once that light touches down, it reveals every crack, every layer of dust, making it impossible to pretend they were never there. Because from the moment you truly see, you can never unsee. And that is the beginning of real freedom. Listen carefully. This isn't the part you skim through and forget. If you do, you'll find yourself right back where you started, and sometimes in a worse place. Because the shadow doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It waits. It watches for the moment you're too tired to resist. It slips through the cracks when your guard is lowest, and when it does, it feels like everything collapses at once. That's not because you're unlucky or broken. It's because your shadow was never seen, never acknowledged, never heard you say, "I know you're here." Jung said that facing your shadow is the most courageous act a person can do. But make no mistake, this isn't a battle to win or lose. It's not a war to conquer an enemy. The shadow is not your enemy. It's a part of you, a part you've locked away in some corner, hoping it would vanish on its own. But the shadow doesn't vanish. It's like an old room you've kept sealed for years, thinking that would keep you safe. Then one day, you open the door, and the stench hits you. The dust is so thick that light can't even break through. And you realize, all these years, everything inside has still been there, only heavier. So, what do? You don't barge in and rip everything apart. You open the door slowly. You let your eyes adjust. You let new air in. You let yourself not panic over what you're about to find. In therapy, this moment is called holding space, creating a safe container for the shadow to emerge without threat. When you do this, something strange happens. The shadow stops screaming. It begins to whisper. And in those whispers are the memories you buried, the dreams you forgot, the strength you didn't know you had. You begin to realize that your shadow doesn't just hold pain, it holds power. Power that's been trapped for years. And if you're patient, calm enough, that power returns to serve you instead of sabotaging you. This is the turning point. Many people give up right before they get here. They think they're losing control, but really, they're close to rebirth. Think back to the times you overreacted, got hurt by a single word, or spiraled over something small. That wasn't a weakness. That wasn't a flaw. That was your shadow knocking, asking you to let it in. Every time you ignore it, it grows louder. Every time you listen, it softens. And one day, you realize you're not afraid of it anymore. But there's something you need to know. And this is the part most people don't want to hear. The shadow will test you again. Even when you think you've done the work. It will show up in the most unexpected ways. An argument, a failure, a betrayal. It's not a betrayal of progress. It's the shadow asking, "Do you accept me now?" If you flinch and hide, the cycle starts again. If you smile and say, "I'm still here," you just broke an old loop. Maybe you're thinking, this all sounds powerful, but I don't know where to begin. The answer is so simple, most people miss it. Begin the next time you feel discomfort. Don't chase it away. Don't rush to explain it. Just stay with it. Listen to it. Write it down. Tell it to someone safe. Or sit still and say, "This is what I feel." This isn't a method to erase your pain. It's how you stop running. And once you stop running, you'll understand what Jung knew his entire life. The shadow doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to return the parts of you that were left behind. And once you take them back, you will never see yourself the same way again. Now is the time to move beyond theory and take the first real step. You don't have to wait until you're ready. You don't need a perfect plan. If you wait for everything to feel stable before you begin, you'll never begin. Choose one small action, something you can do in the next 24 hours, to open the first door into your shadow. Step 1. Pick a recent moment where you overreacted. You got angry, felt hurt, or shut down. Don't analyze it yet. Just write down the situation, your emotions, and your reaction. Keep it raw, unfiltered. This isn't an essay. It's a direct transcript from your inner world. Step 2. Ask why. 3 times. For example, I got angry when my friends made fun of me. Why? Because I felt disrespected. Why? Because I fear they see me as weak. Why? Because deep down, I believe my worth depends on being accepted. When you go 3 layers deep, you'll hit the root. And there, the shadow is waiting. Step 3. Pick one small moment this week to try a different response. If you usually go silent when upset, say one short sentence to express yourself. If you usually explode, pause for 3 full breaths before responding. The goal isn't to win the situation. It's to prove to yourself that you have a choice. The shadow only controls you when you believe you don't. Step 4. Find a place or a person where you can say the hard things out loud. Not so they can fix you, but so you can hear yourself. This might be a journal, a close friend who gets it, or a therapist. What matters most is that you feel safe enough to reveal the parts that don't look pretty. Step 5. Once a week, do one thing you've held back from, just because you feared what others might think. It doesn't have to be huge. Wear something you love, even if it's not in style. Say no to an invite. Try a hobby you once called silly. This is how you reclaim the parts of you the shadow locked away in the name of safety. And finally, remember, you won't win against your shadow in a week or a month. This isn't a race. Every small step you take is a peaceful negotiation with yourself, and each successful negotiation gives you a little more inner territory, a space where you no longer live in fear. Do this long enough and you'll discover something else. The shadow is no longer it and you. It becomes us. And when both sides walk together, you'll be stronger than anything that ever tried to break you. When you begin to walk alongside your shadow, the outside world will react. Some people will sense something's changed. They were used to you being easy to reach, easy to please, always accommodating without resistance. Now, when you pause before replying, when you speak what you want instead of what they expect, that shift will confuse them, maybe even upset them. Don't panic. That reaction isn't a sign you're wrong. It's proof that you're evolving. Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious," which means real growth doesn't come from pleasing everyone or holding on to a good person image. It comes when you face the parts of yourself that are hard to accept and still choose to stand with them. The first outcome is that you'll see, with brutal clarity, who truly values the real you, not the version they projected, not the role they assigned you, but you, in full, without edits. The second outcome is that you'll stop needing to win every argument or gain approval in every room. You'll realize it's enough to be in alignment with your truth. And the third, perhaps the hardest to swallow, is this. You will lose a few relationships, but you'll also notice you don't miss them. This doesn't mean you become cold or detached, quite the opposite. When you stop burning energy to maintain an acceptable version of yourself, you'll have more to give to the relationships that matter, the ones built on mutual respect, not fear of disapproval. Picture this. Before, you were like a house with the front door always open, letting anyone walk in. Now, you begin to close that door, not to lock yourself away, but to invite the right people in. And when they step inside, they'll find a space that's truly lived in, not a showroom curated for other people's tastes. The final truth is simple. You can't find your life's purpose if you don't protect the space to live it. Your shadow is the gatekeeper. It will challenge you. It will ask you to prove that you mean what you say you want. And if you pass that test, it will open the way. Let me say this again. No one else can walk this path for you. No one else can stand in the middle of the storm and choose not to run. That's your work. But so is the reward. A life you don't have to apologize for. A life you no longer need permission to live. You'll come to see that in the end, what matters most isn't how quickly the world accepts this new version of you, but how patiently you're willing to live with it. Because your shadow, once named, doesn't disappear. It becomes a quiet companion. It will speak up when you're about to lose yourself again. And then, on a day without warning, you'll find yourself crossing a threshold. No fireworks, no applause, just a deep inner knowing that you've returned to a place that was always meant to be yours. Maybe, in the next video, what you hold won't be an answer, but a different kind of map. One that no one gave you, but one that leads you back to yourself.